Welcome students, welcome again to this next video lecture. So we were discussing about the basic human rights and various concepts related to basic human rights and how these basic human rights have taken place or enshrined in our Indian constitution. Okay, so let us revise some part and we may move forward. So we have already discussed the concepts of human rights. We have already discussed the scope, nature of human rights. Okay, so see here, the concept of human rights as it is understood today has evolved over the centuries. The concept of human rights has assumed importance globally during past few decades. The concept of human rights, it has been argued, falls within the framework of constitutional law and international law. And for this purpose, it has been identified to defend it collectively against the abuses of power committed by the organs of the state, and at the same time to promote the establishment of fair living conditions for human beings and multidimensional development of human personality. Again, this there are some philosophers. Those philosophers of social contract theory, those are belong to social contract theory, are of the view that the primary object for the creation of the state is to maintain and protect the rights of individuals. And according to Aristotle, state came into existence for life and continues its existence for good life. Okay, so this society state has emerged for life and it continues its existence for good life. Okay, Professor Lasky had issued that state is known by the right it maintains. Again, each individual is entitled to have some rights which are inherent to human existence. Every human being have his own rights. Okay, so such rights should not be violated on the grounds of gender, race, caste, ethnicity, religion, etc. And these are called human rights. Human rights are also basic rights, fundamental rights, natural rights, or inherent rights. Okay, so we may see here in what way that human rights have taken place in our Indian constitution and law. So see here, the section 2D of the Protection of Human Rights Act, that is 1993, defines human rights as rights relating to life, liberty, equality and dignity of the individual, which is guaranteed by the constitution and embodied in the international covenants and enforceable by the courts in India. So one of the unique features of Indian constitution is that a large part of human rights are included in fundamental right part of the constitution, and right to enforce fundamental rights itself has been made a fundamental right. So the fundamental rights incorporated in the constitution of the country is considered as the Magna Carta of individuals' liberty and human rights. Okay, so what is mentioned in the preamble and what in which part of the constitution this preamble is mentioned and what is mentioned here. Human rights in the Indian constitution can be found in the preamble of the Constitution of India. In addition to it, part 3 of Indian constitution related to fundamental rights, part 4 related to directive principles, which together form the core of the constitution. So part 3 and part 4 is very important in Indian constitution. So what is mentioned in the preamble? See, preamble and what is this preamble? It is the sort of introductory statement that gives the guiding purpose and principle of the document. And what is stated in this preamble? Let us see. We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into, here it is a mistake, okay, just try to understand. Okay, I will repeat here. The uh, we the people of India having solemnly resolved to constitute India into sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, and to secure to all its citizens. So this uh, preamble or this constitution is going to give us going to give us security. This constitution is going to provide us security in the form of justice. How? In what kind of justice? So in justice in the sense that social, economic, and political. Again, it gives us liberty. What kind of liberty? Liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship. Again, equality. What kind of equality? Equality of status and of opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and the integrity of the nation. So this is the core element of Indian Constitution, and it is called here introductory statement. Even it is also called as a mirror of or mirror of Indian Constitution. Okay, so even before Indian independence, the framers of Indian Constitution took utmost care and attention to include the basic human rights of all human beings and embodied them in the preamble and part 3 of the Constitution. So besides fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy, the preamble of Indian Constitution itself containing certain ideologies ensuring human rights. So these human rights are mentioned here. So justice, what kind of justice? Social, economic, and political. Then liberty, liberty of thought, expression, and belief. Equality, equality of status, opportunity, and fraternity, ensuring dignity of individuals, freedom of speech, expression, etc., have also been incorporated as fundamental rights of the citizens of India. And these principles are considered as founding pillars of Indian democracy, which the people of India are solemnly resolved to follow. So we are the people of India have been following these principles of justice, liberty, equality, fraternity, and we are keeping the dignity of every individual in our country. So the basic purpose of the preamble is to ensure protection of rights and freedoms of all citizens without any discrimination whatsoever. Again, the Supreme Court of India, in its historic judgment in Maneka Gandhi versus Union of India, observed that fundamental rights represent the basic values cherished by people of India and ensure to protect the dignity of the individual and create conditions in which every human being can develop his personality to the fullest extent. Among all species of human rights, right to life receives precedence and it is a sine qua non. What does this mean? Sine qua non? It means an essential condition, a thing that is absolutely necessary. Okay, so basic human rights is the sine qua non for us. It is the essential condition, a thing which is absolutely necessary for us, for our development, for the enjoyment of other rights. Therefore, right to life has been given paramount importance by our constitution and the courts. So, for in the event of any invasion to right to life, other rights which are subsidiary to this right become meaningless, since the entire edifice of human rights jurisprudence revolves around the bedrock of human right to life. So, right to life and personal liberty is the most precious, sacred, inalienable, and fundamental of all the fundamental rights of citizen. So, this statement is very much important here. Right to life and personal liberty is the most precious, sacred, and inalienable and fundamental of all fundamental rights of citizens. So, right to life includes protection against torture and cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment in any form. So, we are living life, but it should be free from the torture, free from cruelty, free from inhuman and degrading treatment, and that is the proper life that we live in real sense. Now see, Constituent Assembly and Human Rights. The Indian Constitution was drafted by the Constituent Assembly of India, and it was a great task performed by Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar for framing a constitution after suffering from severe exploitation and denial of justice from colonial powers to vast number of Indian people. The Constitution of India gave primary importance to human rights, and Ramachandra Guha said that the demand for a declaration of fundamental rights arose from four factors. Which are those four factors? Because of that, our demand for a declaration of fundamental rights was arised. Those four factors are: first one is lack of civil liberty in India during the British rule. Britishers were not giving us civil liberty. Second, deplorable social conditions, particularly affecting the untouchables and women. Even they are deprived from their human rights. Then existence, third factor is that existence of different religious, linguistic and ethnic groups encouraged and exploited by the Britishers, and because of, this is also one of the factors that demand for a declaration of fundamental rights. And the fourth factor is exploitation of the tenants by the landlords. Okay, so because of this, we demanded a declaration of fundamental rights in our country. Then the Constituent Assembly incorporated in the Constitution of India the essence of the rights proclaimed and adopted by the General Assembly in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Further, on 10th December 1948, when the Constitution of India was in the making, the General Assembly proclaimed and adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which surely influenced the framing of India's Constitution. Okay, again, viewed from the Indian standpoint, human rights have been synthesized as it were not as an integrated fabric by the preamble promises and various constitutional clause of the National Charter of 1950. So see here, human rights and Indian Constitution, what is the relation? The Constitution of India, which came into force on 26th of January 1950 with 395 articles and 8 schedules, is one of the lengthiest constitutions in the world has ever created. This constitution begins with a preamble which declares India to be a sovereign, democratic and republic country. Later in 1976, through the 42nd Amendment of the Constitution, the concept of socialist, secular were added. These two words were added. Even this some questions are asked on these particular words. What is the number of amendment according to which these two words are added in Indian Constitution? And that is the 42nd amendment of the Constitution, which is the biggest ever amendment in Indian Constitution, which was happened in 1976. Then the term democratic denotes that the government gets its authority from the will of the people. It gives a feeling that they all are equal, irrespective of the race, religion, language, sex and culture. Again, the preamble to the Constitution alleges justice, social, economic and political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship, equality of status and of opportunity, and fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and the integrity of the nation to all its citizens. Again, let's see development of human rights in India. So history of human civilization reveals that human rights existed throughout the ages in one name or the other. The idea of human rights was not new to the political thinkers and philosophers in India. And as pointed out in the chapter 3 under the evolution of rights in India, the visions to secure human rights and fundamental freedoms for all and everyone existed even in Vedic era also. The modern form of human rights jurisprudence originated in India at the time of British rule, but the Indians were discriminated in the enjoyment of civil and political liberties. This was criticized by the Enlightenment freedom fighters such as Gandhi and others of that time. Collective movements too were organized to demand for the basic rights. Again, this was reflected. This was reflected for the first time in the Charter of 1830. Similarly, the Charter Act of 1833 conferred upon Indians to enjoy few political rights by allowing them to participate in governance subject to certain limitations. And this is the milestone. This is the landmark. What is the landmark? According to this Charter Act of 1833, which gave Indians to enjoy full political rights by allowing them to participate in governance subject to certain limitations. And in this way, Indians joined the governance. Indian joined the political rights. They enjoyed the political rights. Okay. Further, the declaration to recognize respect for religion by being a secular state. Again, Queen Victoria in 1833 ensured that there will be no interference with religious belief and worship of any of the subjects by further declaring that no one would be favored and molested by reasons of one's religious faith and observance. And Queen Victoria stated that, in short, British government will not interfere in the matter of religion of Indian people and faith in religion of Indian people. Additionally, it also provided that all shall enjoy the equal and impartial admittance to public offices and assignment to duties of which any subject by his education, ability, and integrity was qualified to discharge. Subsequently, the Swaraj Bill of India 1895 spoke about freedom of speech, right to privacy and equality, right to franchise and punishment for specific offense only. Okay, so these were the movements and these were recommendations were done. Again, progress was happened in the development of human rights in India. Again, next point is that Government of India Act 1909. We are looking here in what way the human rights were taken place in Indian Constitution. Okay, so related to this is the slides here. Next important development in traceable to the Government of India Act 1909, which in pursuance of the demands for fundamental rights initiated through the Home Rule Bill prepared by the National Congress, provided for equality of opportunity in public services. It was also provided that such opportunity in public services must exclude the consideration of religion. And other resolutions of the National Congress made between 1970 and 1919 reiterated the demand for conferment of civil rights and equality of status with English persons. At the time of Montagu-Chelmsford Report, which led to the enactment of the Government of India Act of 1919, the Indian National Congress became very intense as they pressed for reforms. Okay, so accordingly, the first formal document came into existence in 1928 with the report made by Jawaharlal Nehru. The report mentioned list of aspired rights such as free elementary education, living wage, protection of motherhood, welfare of children. This way, the report is seen as a forerunner to fundamental rights and direct principles of state policy, which were later incorporated into the Constitution of India. Again, Government of India Act 1935. This previously we observed Government of India Act of 1909. We will see right now Government of India Act 1935 and Human Rights in India. The Simon Commission rejected Nehru report and which consequently led to the next important session at Karachi held by the National Congress to adopt a detailed program of fundamental rights and duties and economic and social change. And at the same time, the Government of India Act 1935 was being prepared to be a substitute for the Government of India Act 1999. However, the Government of India Act 1935, which the British thought was a great step to the direction of India's advancement towards constitutionalism, made no provision for civil liberties and fundamental rights. Thus, it was recommended to the British government that fundamental rights be included in it. So, this is also a good remark or good turn has taken to take the form of fundamental rights in Indian Constitution or in Indian government. Again, citing a reason different to the earlier one, that is, that the statutory commission of the British had found that princely states in India as against the formulation of such rights. The British government straight away rejected the demand for right. In 1939, when the Second World War was broke out, in which Europe and Great Britain were involved, the constitutional machinery in India was suspended and the nationalist aspirations of the Indian people were suppressed. Okay, otherwise we would have taken our uh, independence earlier if these wars were not happened at that time. When the war ended in 1945, the issue of India's independence was reconsidered, and after negotiations and discussions, a Constituent Assembly was set up in 1946 for the purpose of framing the Constitution to an independent India. Meanwhile, the Sapru Committee, founded in 1945, recognized the importance of incorporating fundamental rights into the Constitution of India. For the first time, the said committee report distinguished between fundamental rights. Okay, so the fundamental rights are defined as the basic human rights of all citizens. These rights, defined in Part 3 of the Constitution, applied irrespective of race, place of birth, religion, caste, creed, or gender. They are enforceable by the courts, subject to specific restrictions. The direct principles of state policy are guidelines for the framing of laws by the government. So, directive principles are considered as the guidelines for the framing of laws by the government. While framing the laws, the, the government should consider about the direct principles of state policy, and according to that, they should frame the laws. If they want make if they want to make any laws in India, the government in at that time should think about the direct principles of state policy. So these provisions set out in part 4 of the constitution are not enforceable by the courts, but the principles on which they are based are fundamental guidelines for governance that the state is expected to apply in framing policies and passing laws. So uh, uh, here we may stop here and we may again resume the lecture in next video lecture. Okay, we will resume this PPT in the next video lecture. Till then, thank you and good day.